So when you're in escrow on a property like this, you would want to have a well report and make
Right.
sure it's, pumping out a certain amount of gallons per minute.
Exactly.
Right. And then same with the septic, right? You want to make
And the
sure
lender will require you to do a gallons per minute test,
for
and
sure.
they'll ask for that. So they won't fund a loan if there's not water on source. And sometimes people will have water trucked in, and you can have these huge tanks on your properties to get water in. But again, that it limits your financing.
Right. And then like the septic tanks have to be certified on properties like this.
That's a big deal because that is septic tanks. Depending on where you're at in like Malibu, you can't get those things replaced. It's a long wait, and it's a big issue to get the septic tanks replaced. Um, if you add any fixtures to your house, you need a bigger septic tank, technically, right? So if you add more toilets, then you need more septic tank, bigger tank, and they won't let you do it. I would say might not be so critical, but just kind of something else to be worried about.
I'm curious what the cost might be if you had to replace something like that. Do you know?
It could depend, and there are so many different types. And now, like technology, there's the old ways, right, where it was just tank and then like leach lines, where the water would bleed out and then the waste would stay there, and then you'd have the guy come and pump it out. But if you go into like the newer ones where they compost and they it's a thing. It's a thing. Like and you could they even take the waste and like use it as fertilizer. It's a very depending on how green you want to go, right? But I would venture somewhere in between $30,000 and $50,000 on the average for like a medium sized thing,
Mm-hmm.
and then maybe even double that if you're going to go huge.
Well, and you
Uh,
mentioned composting. That's like a whole nother factor, right? Because
well,
you're gonna
essentially, you're making fertilizer.
exactly, but you're gonna fertilize your own garden where you're growing your food, but you're gonna be using probably the scraps from your garden from when you're cooking.
Right.
That's what goes in your compost.
Right. So if you take the scraps and you let them ferment and become fertilizer,
Fertilizer.
yeah, like right there. That one's gonna go over my head real quick. I don't know how to do that, but I've heard of the concept.
Yeah, I'm not particularly the gardener, although I've always wanted to be. I think I've always tried to grow things, even like when I was a little kid. I would, take pumpkin seeds out of our pumpkin and put them in the backyard and think it was going to pop up a pumpkin, and it never did. But so,
Oh, what a letdown.
I know, such
That's
a
messed up.
letdown.
Well, you go out
But
going outside every day and like looking at it, putting water on
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah, pretty much.
Oh
But
wow.
you know what, though? I mean, I probably planted it the wrong time of the year or something. Who knows?
Well, that's the thing, right? There, you have to have like you have to plant at certain times of the year. Remember, we did an art.
We did. We messed with that a little bit.
Yeah, and but you had to, depending on the crop, you had to plant at certain times of the year so that it would grow.
Well, we tried to grow stuff from seeds and we did the little starters, and then
That didn't go well.
we soaked them, like we watered them too much, and then they probably drowned and they
And
never
they have
grew.
to be inside, like they have to be in a protected environment,
Yeah.
much more than the like just if you already have a rooted plant.
Yeah, we didn't really do our homework that well on that.
But you learn, and now we know that. Like, you know what I mean? So I guess that's kind of the whole adventure of it.
Right.
Imagine if you're like you're suburban, you're used to, driving into your garage every day and like living in like a regular air conditioning house, and you're like, you have maybe even not a backyard, and just kind of that's your life.